Hi, friends. I hope all of you are doing well. It is your friendly executive cat herder, Maresa Friedman, here with all kinds of fun today in a training that came out of, let's just face it, pure effing frustration. Now you might be thinking, okay, Marissa, what's going on? Why are you, what's happening? What are you feeling? What's cracking? And honestly, when I look at what's happening and what I'm seeing in the market and what I'm witnessing and I think the first thing I want to say contextually is this is not to insult anyone that has taken the path to strategically go about teaching people how to like live stream or how to do speaking or any of that. This is not a shots fired kind of moment. That's not why I'm here. But why I am here is to really help people get into this next journey of whatever it is that they're doing by allowing themselves to essentially like create a better like framework in which to operate. And I say that knowing that so many people are seeking attention and awareness and wanting to get their message out into the world. And there's a belief system, I think, similar to writing a book, where people think, oh, if I do this thing, I'm going to get tons of leads and tons of clients. And so I want to just level set the expectation for today's training that's around building and kind of getting a TEDx talk. Sometimes I think we spend so much time being in a space of, you know, frenzy because we see other people doing things, and so we want to be doing those things, and should we be doing things differently, and what can we be doing, and all of these things. And so I just want to make sure that everyone knows my goal today is to help you determine, how am I going to get this talk? What's the best way for me to get this TED talk? How can I do this in a way where I get to benefit, I get to deliver a message that's valuable, and I don't have to spend a significant amount of money? Because what I worry about is so many people are spending an exorbitant amount of money to have people coach them in an area where you don't actually have to spend um, the money to hire this resource. And I'm speaking kind of diplomatically because I know that I have tons of friends that are speaking coaches, and I know that I want to be very clear. Not all speaking coaches are bad. To get someone to help you with executive presence is a phenomenal gift. What I'm speaking to specifically is when you see these ads, and I kind of just, I got so frustrated because I'll get a client after they've gone through the ringer of hiring coach after coach that's promised them this thing, and it's like, a TEDx is free. It is $0, friends. Um, if you have to pay to get into one, first things first, report it. Just report it to the TED organization, because that's not the process. So, and again, I'm somewhat controversial in nature when I share these things, but it's because I'm very passionate, and I'm also very clear that I want people to win. I want people to have the ability to really create the impact that they want in their businesses and their life. So that being said, let's just get into it, and feel free to hang out with me in the comments, say hi, ask questions as we go through this process. So let's back up. The year for me was, I believe, 2016, when I went off on my own and I said, how do I get a TEDx talk? I believed in my heart of hearts that people got these talks because they were, they had the best thing to share. And what I quickly learned is it's not about the best thing. And I spent, it was on my bucket list, and I said, I'll do it, I'll do it. And then in 2017, I kind of thought, well, you know what? Screw it. I can do this. I can get up there and I can deliver a talk. And so what ended up happening was I was able to deliver my talk through TEDx. And it was one of the best experiences that I can say for my own growth as someone that was already getting paid to be a speaker. And everyone's experience is different. And I mean, even in my TEDx talk, my name is spelled incorrectly. So that gives you an idea that, again, it isn't always what you think it is. It always, it can shift, it can change. But at the end of the day, this opportunity taught me a couple things. And one thing was number one, a TEDx talk is not about getting up there and solely talking about your expertise. If you think you're going to get on a stage and talk about why you're awesome and why you're great, they've got your number read. That's not what they want to do. The second is ideally, you should not be doing the same talk at more than one TEDx. Controversy there. People think they can go and do different talks, different schools of thoughts. But the foundation of getting a TEDx is an idea worth sharing. So first things first, if you're already in a space where you speak and you talk and you have a one pager, or maybe you don't have a one pager, it's a really good idea to establish one if you've never done one. And all you want to do is really talk through the things of what are people talking to you about. Now, I believe in using assets multiple ways. So in my one pager, I'm doing a couple of different things. This is the one pager that I use sometimes to speak for podcasts, for brand deals. So I'm using it a couple different ways. So I encourage you, if you don't already have one, it's a really simple document that you can put together. It's got, who you are, your phone number, the best email. It's got your demographics. It's got the language. It's got my, talk tracks here. And again, that was kind of step one for me. Step two in the process of finding your kind of TEDx talk is to say, okay, let's look at the TEDx kind of program in general, not specific to me, but like in general. And let's go to the main website. And it's going to give you the origins and kind of overview of what this, essentially like what it was. And the reason, again, that I'm sharing this with you is for your ability to be able to kind of understand. And it's local organizers, and every organizer is different. So when you go and you want to speak at an event, it's very clear here, can I pay to speak at an event? No. The answer is no. And again, everything you can propose, if you're looking here, there's application forms, etc. And if you're concerned that people are submitting or asking for fees, you can email them and do all that. So just keep an idea there, for a variety of reasons. Now, when you start to go into these TEDx events, you're going to go to the main TEDx page. Now, for me, I live in San Diego. So I started with my own city to see what was available. And on their map, they've got like, hey, there's this thing here, which was Del Norte High School. They've got, TEDx Salon. They've got, UCSD Salon. They've got, there's all kinds of things here. And you got to understand that this is volunteer ran. So it's going to be a little frustrating as you start this process because it's not going to be perfectly put together, unfortunately. But let's look at something like this TEDx Salon. And, Audrey Jacobs happens to be in San Diego. She's a phenomenal organizer. Her team has really kind of got a bunch of cool things that they do. But you'll notice, like, to actually get to the website is like, well, where do I go? So you're going to have multiple browsers open. And so you have to kind of go back and forth. So here's TEDx San Diego and their website. They're telling you that they've got a TEDx Women event coming up. They just had TEDx Shine. And again, they've got their past talks in their communities and all of that, right? And one of the things that I really appreciate about what San Diego does is they really are working hard to only showcase local speakers. So it tells you here's how you can volunteer, right? But again, like if you're trying to come in here and you just want to partner or go, you're like, well, I want to learn how to speak, right? How can I, support? What do I need to do? So again, it's not always very transparent on who to talk to or what to talk to. So what I would do if I was you would be to reach out to the organizer and say, hey, when are you sourcing speakers? I would like to participate. Okay. The second thing that we could do is you'll notice it's like, okay, well, that didn't really give me all the information. Let me go back here. So you're having to toggle between the two. And I think this is where people get frustrated, is because they think it should be faster, easier, better. And again, here's this event. Here's the women's event, right? It's here, but like, again, the website, it's got the event name. And again, it's not intuitive. And so this is where I think people get frustrated. Now, when I found my talk, it was TEDx Chula Vista, but I ended up applying to multiple TEDx's, and I really, really wanted to, highlight different things. So you can kind of see here, every, talk has their themes. Then, they have like, hey, get in touch. So part of this process is learning that it's not going to be as easy to find the things that you want, but you have to just really kind of think, okay, how can I apply to speak? So you have to do some digging. Now, when you look at the apply to speak, right, these are the older ones, right? But you can kind of see that this particular one had a lot of deadlines and things that they wanted for people. Now, it's been since 2020, it wasn't updated, so that's a dead lead. Now, what I might do is look at San Diego County TEDx's, and I'm going to see what's here. And, again, it's not always intuitive. So, they've got some of their events, but you're like, well, I can't see where to speak. No problem. Now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back here and again, continue to scroll. So this is the part that I think most people lose their shit on, because they want it to be really simple and easy. And unfortunately, it's just not. But if we look at the youth versus the salon versus women versus TEDx Torrey Pines, okay, well, let's look at this. February 17th, 2026, TEDx Torrey Pines. They're bringing creatives, lifelong learners, ideas worth spreaded. These are the organizers of this event. And for whatever reason, they do have their website linked. There we go. And now we can start to see, okay, like, cool, apply to speak. Boom. Now we can see this is their interest form. This is the person that's here. They're passionate about doing this. They're, again, looking for all kinds of things. TEDx events are here. There's an audience that limits, and you cannot promote your products, books, or businesses. Okay. And then you just go through the process. Here's the email. Again, there's tons of ways to do things, but let me just, sorry, it looks like the screen didn't share. I apologize. Let's put that back. Here we go. This is the TEDx Torrey Pines application page. Email, full name, phone number. Where do you live in do you live in San Diego? If you're interested, the speaker application will be sent to it. It's competitive, blah, blah, blah. Do you know anyone who might be interested in sponsoring? Do you know any vendors who might be interested in donating? You can have a company sponsor your TED Talk. You cannot work for that company. So there's all kinds of things here. So there's all kinds of things, and you just put it in there. Once you do that, then you're kind of in the process, and you just can again go back to TED. And so my strategy was, I figured out, okay, how many TEDx events are there that are going to happen in 2026? And it's going to spit out a list. And I literally went through and I applied to all of them. So as you can tell, this is somewhat of a painstaking process. However, it's not that hard when you think of the return that you get on being able to do this. Part of this too, and that discipline of having that speaker one sheet, helps you figure out, like, what do I have to share? What's the story that I have that's worth sharing, that someone's going to care about, that someone wants to hear about? Too often we fall in love with the idea of what we think we're going to talk about. And then when they come in and they say, hey, we want you to talk about X, Y, and Z, or that was really good, but actually what our theme is and what we're hearing is this. So you have to be flexible. In my case, my organizer said, this is what you talked about, but actually what we think over here is more interesting. And so I was pretty bummed initially because I thought, well, I don't want to talk about that. But in the end, it ended up being the best thing that I could have ever done. But again, I wasn't sure, hey, like, this doesn't feel right or true to me. This doesn't feel like the thing that I, like want to talk about. But I believe that in some ways the organizers are really there to not only curate a program, but they're actually going to say, hey, this is what we imagine. So let me give you another example of another TEDx that is pretty well run and at least has their website together. So again, you're doing the search, but this is for like TEDx Marin. So Marin has their page here. They have their email list and they're going to say, hey, we're going to take a break, but we're coming back in 2026. So what's really cool is they talk about who they want to work with, what they do, the types of things that they're doing. They have smaller curated things. And again, like if you want to submit something, you have the capability. So this is script development or consulting for speakers. Here's, their things. And again, they're still continuing to curate. So there's a ton of resources. So my suggestion is you find all of the TEDx events that are accepting speakers. Then you go through the process of applying for each of them. On my side, to be clear, I applied to more than 27. I got into, I want to say 3 or 4, and I ended up picking the one that was right in my backyard. So that process from the time that I applied to the time I was selected was around 90 days. But it's like baseball. The more you keep applying, the better it is. And again, knowing that this is volunteer run, you're going to have to start with like a bigger search of TEDx is in my city, TEDx is in my state. Or we can leverage like a chat GPT to help us create a hit list. And the hit list, at least for me, if you're using someone to help you do this, does it take time? Yeah, because it's not easy. But again, we can leverage the technology, right? So if I'm going into, say, our chat GPT, I'm going to say, create a list. And I'll show you this as I'm doing this in real time so that you guys can, again, get a visual on this. And we're going to show the entire screen of this one right here. And so you're going to see create a list of all TEDx events that are actively accepting speaker submissions for 2026 with their respective websites, right? So we can try a prompt to help us with this. And so if we leverage the technology, it will help. Hi, Rahala, nice to see you. Thanks for shouting. Awesome. Congratulations. We love our TEDx organizers. And I appreciate you showing up because I think so many people are confused. They think they need to pay a very high-end speaker, coach to get in, to talk. And again, this is not the path. Again, so now what my chat GPT thing has done is it said, here are the applications and the application deadlines. So this is how we're going to leverage tech to do this for you. Now what I would do is essentially, do as many as you can and then compile all this information into a Google Doc so I can track my submissions, right? So we're leveraging the technology to make things easier for us in some aspects. And we're going to make sure that when we're doing this process that, again, you're keeping track of the ones that you're applying to. You're keeping track. Again, you're going in, you're seeing what's possible. You're seeing again, just like all the different potential that you have. And again, it's so good. Oh, Sonia, thank you so much. Yeah, I think one of the things is like, it's at least for me when we go through this process, right? Let's leverage the technology to help us think and do smarter, right? Like we don't need to work hard, right? So then I'm going to say, put it into a Google, I'm going to say create the Google sheet. And if it can, it will. And it should be able to put that in a sheet for me. And then I have my tracking sheet. And again, I am going to be very clear. The amount of pitches that I get on a daily basis in my LinkedIn account of people trying to sell me a coaching package or blindly send me a thing about a TEDx, I lose my mind. Perfect. So now we've got our list, our application status, our, date, and we can kind of take that sheet and we've got at least our starter. Let's look at this and see if it's going to open for you. I think it will. Hopefully it does. And there we go. Here's our starting kind of thing. And it's telling us that we have Oshawa, Asheville, Surrey, Sioux Falls, Kalamazoo, right? Marin is in there too. So this is kind of how I did that process. The other thing that drove me a little banana sandwich is, this is like a great document. And I'm going to show you the pitch that somebody sent me. And this is kind of what killed me because I want to be kind and empowering at the same time. When someone sends us a blind, message without doing any research, I just need to share with you the pitch that was given to me, and you'll probably, understand and giggle when you see it, right? But again, it's would love to know something. If you could fill your as seen on banner with big names like TEDx and Entrepreneurs on Fire, so you can reach expert status, would you let this? We've got a spot, da 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 da. We want people like you, blah blah blah. And then the pitch is like 10 grand. So this is where I feel like it's leveraging the technology that we have available to us. It just takes a little bit of organization, but you can apply to these things. You can start to talk to the organizers. You can connect with them and ask them, hey, how do I, submit for a speaker submission? Also know that if it's about this like story and you're very obsessed with your own story, you really have to take a back seat and say, what matters to the audience that's going to be in front of me? Not does it matter that I'm getting all of my bullet points about me and my story and my business. And so there's a really good book that you can get, and it's actually called, TED Talks, the official TED Guide to Public Speaking. It is an essential, I believe, part of this process if you really want to do this, of learning how to speak in this particular way. And this is the book I would recommend. It's really good. It walks you through a bunch of things. It kind of takes you through that process. And again, there is no way, at least that I know of right now, like it's just networking and talking to people and taking the coaching and feedback and seeing how can I make the talk bend. So let me give you a great example. My initial talk that I wanted to submit was around getting sober and the turning point for me, and essentially walking across the freeway and everything that followed from that. That's what I thought the thing worth sharing was. And what it ended up morphing into was, what are all the things that create the environments where people have similar behaviors regardless of age over time? And the only thing that's changed that is technology. What I wanted to talk about, where we ended up, two totally different places. So the process is challenging. And if you have a good organizer that works with you, I think in some cases it was different for me because I was already a professional speaker, so I didn't need as much coaching on certain areas. But I do think it's really important that you know what you're getting into. There's a lot of practices, there's a lot of rehearsals. Depending on how involved your organizer is, they may really hard coach you, and that can be uncomfortable. And one of the greatest examples, at least that I've seen lately, of someone that did a really phenomenal talk was a past client of mine by the name of Greg Ward. And the reason that I believe personally that it was so impactful for me to see him speak is it was not about his business. It was not about the work that he does. It was really something bigger than him and an idea worth sharing. And when you think about it, you go, well, what can I share that hasn't already been shared? That's the challenge. The challenge is how do I communicate something? And, spend some time looking at talks in different categories. And what's interesting again is if you have a general talk and then you just kind of bend it to fit the theme, that's an option and it works really well. But also spend the time to really think through, okay, I'm going to apply to these. I'm going to be open. If I get selected, am I willing to fly there? For me, I was willing to do it. So again, it was probably about a 45-day period of applying to more than 20 something TEDx's. Got into 3 or 4. I picked the one that was closest to me. And again, I highly encourage you, if you haven't already, you can certainly get to know an organizer online. You can certainly get to know, other people and what they're up to and what they're doing, but also like have an understanding that the organizer's job is kind of to protect the baby. And if you think you're going to come into this talk and promote your business or your brand, that is not the purpose of that's just not the purpose. And I think that's where people get a little bit lost and confused because they think that, like, oh, this is going to be transforming. I think Anna David is one of the people that I have a lot of respect for because she talks about this in similar veins when you're writing a book, that there are many New York Times bestsellers that make $0, right? The book is a tool, it's a vehicle, it's an asset. So that being said, I'm coming down to kind of the last 3 or 4 minutes of my time with you guys today. But again, um, jumping on here, I just saw something that was troubling in terms of an industry behavior. I'm like, what the hell? Like, there's all kinds of different ways to get these talks. You don't have to pay a coach 15 grand to prep you for the talk, because if you get accepted in the talk, they actually give you a speaking coach for free. Um, so for those that are a little bit more advanced, you know what to do. If this was helpful for you, let me know. Shout it out in the comments. Again, the ChatGPT usage to help you supplement that kind of cumbersome search process is essential. You can also do things like, maybe a TEDx isn't what you want. Maybe there's another type of talk that you can participate in. And the next training will be on how to find speaking gigs or ways to speak as you're building your book of business in your career. So thanks for having me. I will talk to you guys all later. Have a great day.